system. So the current workers would pay revenue into the system to provide benefits for the retirees. So with 40-to-1 ratio, that was no problem. Does anybody know today what the ratio is?
3-to-1.
Excellent. 3-to-1. And the projections are in 20 years, 2-to-1. And does anybody know why that's happening? What's causing that to happen?
Less workers.
Relative to the amount of retirees. That's actually what we're talking about here with the baby boom. The population bubble known as the baby boom. As baby boomers reach retirement age, there's going to be millions and millions every year are beginning to collect Social Security. So the ratio is decreasing. And so because of that, a lot of people have been concerned thinking, well, is it going to be there for me? Well, in regard to that, I have good news, I have bad news. Although let me put you at ease, the bad news isn't all that bad. But whenever I use that expression, good news, bad news, folks, it reminds me of something that happened to a very good friend of mine. A very good friend of mine, he's retired now. He used to work in the car business. He's been retired now about 10 years. But a few years prior to his retirement, a young man came into his dealership wanting to buy a car. So they found the car he wanted. Now they were going to see if he could get financing to buy the car. So they went into his office, filled out a credit application. My friend went to go see the credit manager to run the credit report. My friend came back in the room a couple minutes later, sat across the desk from this young man, looked him dead in the eye, and he said, I have good news and I have bad news. Your application for credit has been declined. We can't get you the loan. The young man paused for just a moment. What do you suppose he asked? What's the good news? Actually, he said, what is the good news? My friend said, that was the good news. He said, the bad news is, there's a warrant out for your arrest, and the police are looking for you as we speak. That's a true story. It's not a joke, not embellished. It really happened. Well, the bad news I have for you isn't anywhere near that bad. But before we get to that, let me get to the good news. Will it be there for you? The trust fund is actually still growing. Now, these are current reports. As of year-end 2010, the trust fund was $2.6 trillion. As of the end of 2011, $2.677 trillion. And as of year-end 2012, they just came out with the figures, $2.73 trillion. So contrary to what some of you probably heard, no, it's not broke. In fact, it's actually growing. And according to projections, it will continue to grow up until the year 2021, 2022. Now that's the good news. I think there is some bad news. It isn't horrible, but here's the bad news. The long-term projections are, without reform, benefits will fall to 75% in the year 2033. And what that means is, folks, is if you look kind of on, let's get this out here again. It says payable benefits, income after trust fund exhaustion in 2033. According to current estimates, the trust fund will be exhausted in the year 2033. However, there will still be enough revenue annually coming into the trust fund to provide 75% of current benefits, and that would continue until the year 2086 to provide 73%. So that's the bad news. Now let me ask you this. Is that as bad as what you've heard? No. Now it's not great news, but it's certainly not catastrophic. And the point of this is, that's the long-term projections without reform. So the next question, what are the possible reforms on the table to avert this problem? Well, what would it take to restore solvency? One reform proposal being studied, increase maximum earnings subject to Social Security tax. They're currently at $113,000 this year. Last year they were $110,000. If you work for someone and they give you wages, they're taking out 6.2% of your wages are paid out in Social Security tax. Now, if you are employed by someone, your employer matches that amount. And they do that up to $113,000. If you're self-employed, you cover both portions. But once you get above $113,000, folks, the Social Security portion goes away. And all that you're taxed on for FICA wages above that is the Medicare portion, which is 1.45%. And so that one projection on the table is to increase the amount of money that you're paying 6.2% on. That would increase the revenue coming into Social Security to avert that problem. Second suggestion, raise the normal retirement age. For the vast majority of you, that's age 66. So if they raise it, that's going to lower benefits, which will reduce costs, which would avert that problem from happening. Third, lower benefits for future retirees. And fourth, reduce cost of living adjustments for all retirees. And so, what's the bottom line? Your benefits are not likely to be affected by Social Security reform. If they are affected, not dramatically. So, will it be there for you? The overwhelming answer is yes. So now that leads us to the second question. How much can I expect to receive? There are really two factors which determine your